irony that when Sam can't make it, we're putting a Yankees game on when Mets aren't playing.
Oh, are they off today?
Yeah. Also, I mean, they canceled the season because his mark's gone. What's the fucking point anymore?
I was just reading on the pooper that Big Bob Nightingale confirmed the Verlander talks with the Astros are heating up.
Oh, good. Hopefully it's not the Dodgers, too.
And then also that Pham to Yankees is heating up.
Whoa.
Yeah, we can still go see him. Yeah.
Yeah. Mets Yankees is one of the more frequent grid options, I think. Should really refresh.
Supposedly it was framed with the idea that the Wilpons being gone means the Mets aren't embarrassed to make trades with the Yankees now.
Oh. I mean, how is Pham going to react to having to shave, though?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's got one of the more involved do-ups.
That could be fun if he implodes the
shaving rule.
No, the Yankees locker room.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, whoever ends up breaking the barrier and becomes the first Yankee to be allowed to have a beard is gonna be a pretty sick legend. Yeah. What if Ohtani does it? What if he forces that as part of his brinksmanship?
It's Alex!
It's episode 253 of View from 202. Our Leagues Cup. Leagues Cup.
Leagues Cap. Leagues Cup is so cap, y'all. It's not. It's not bussin'.
No. It was pretty bussin' on Sunday.
FR. It's our Leagues Cup review, preview. I don't know. We're actually at this point.
We're in the midst of it. It's just the Leagues Cup extravaganza.
In media res. Leagues Cup episode. The Red Bulls have played 2 games since we last spoke.
An entire group stage.
Yeah, a big bag group stage. They played the New England Revolution and Atletico San Luis. And they're now scheduled to play NYCFC on Thursday. There's also 2 bits of news that we will touch upon. An incoming transfer to the Red Bulls, and a familiar name that some of the older Red Bulls fans might remember got a new job. But first, these games. Wow, can you believe it that it's actually here? When was the Leagues Cup first announced?
We were cracking wise about the Leagues Cup, I want to say, in like 2019.
Yeah.
Like it was a bit on here for a little bit, specifically that Brit was never going to pretend it exists.
Well, part of that was not a bit, in that I legitimately forgot it existed. And then people occasionally would be like, oh, but like semi-seriously be like, oh, you got to think about like we're going to have Leagues Cup fixtures next year. And I'd be like, fuck off. I'm not going to think about that. That's not a real thing. And here we are. Even on our last episode, we were sitting here and thinking, oh, I guess I don't know if this is going to make it into the cold open, so I should clarify. It's just 3 of us. Sam can't make it today because I'm probably not going to be able to make it next week. So roster rotation here at View from 202 as well.
Load management.
Yeah, load management, exactly. But we were sitting here last week.
Well, we signed Sam as the Aaron Judge of this show, but he turned out to be the Giancarlo Stanton, it seems.
Yeah, we've actually traded Sam for the rights to 12 minor league podcasters that we expect to arrive in 7 years.
Our farm system like needs some prospects, you know.
Yeah. But last week we were sitting here being like, what the hell is the format? And wow, lo and behold, I now know what the format of this is. Sort of. You know, I don't know how many rounds there are after this. But what a funny, weird little thing this Leagues Cup is, because jogging down memory lane, I'm trying to just compare it to my impressions of Superliga. That was what that was called, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was just Superliga. It didn't need any any sponsors or explanation or anything. You knew what the Superliga was. It was a natural part of the development of the game.
It was a Superliga.
As opposed to this absolute bastard that we're dealing with this summer.
Leagues Cup. I'm surprised they didn't force a half English, half Spanish, and like they did with Campeones Cup.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I wonder if they like.
I mean,
I wonder if they were like, oh fuck, we used Campeones Cup too
all of the
quick.
graphics are bilingual. I think.
Yeah,
they do it first in English and then Spanish or whatever. They do.
I'm still getting
fucking suck it, Quebec.
Yeah,
Absolutely bodied.
I'm still getting media emails, so I'm getting some of them from Leagues Cup. So I've been perusing, and it's just funny to me to see actual like Leagues Cup staff listed. Like you actually are spending your life on this. Like, but sure enough, there's people out there organizing it. It reminds me of remember that when they had Copa America in the U.S. like 6-7 years ago.
Oh, the Centennial.
Yeah, the Centenario. But that it like wasn't even scheduled and set up until like February, and then they like patched it together and it ended up actually going through. That's what this whole Leagues Cup situation feels like.
These promoters are having the last laugh because did they expect it to be 4 times the prize pool of CONCACAF Champions League?
Oh wow. Well, apparently they've put the money there because they haven't spent it on like charter planes for some of the Mexican teams that have been stuck in airports apparently. But
yeah, it is. Well, as we all know, that's actually the key to defeating the Red Bulls.
True.
Critical, frozen. What was that?
That was San Jose.
Was that
I think Montreal that year.
Oh, no, I'm talking about Santos.
That too. That was the peak of it all. Yeah.
I was just trying to remember if Santos is a quarterfinal. Yeah, it was a quarterfinal, not a semifinal. So the Chivas was a semifinal. But yeah, I'm sort of resigned to something existing in parallel with, or maybe eventually replacing Champions League, even though I don't think in an ideal world, in a vacuum, Champions League would just be respected and actually watched.
Right.
I concede that maybe it needs sort of a hard reboot to get eyes on it.
Well, I mean, don't quote me here, but I vaguely remember seeing that CONCACAF rolled out something that they're going to start like a CONCACAF Europa League, which it's like, why don't you just expand the Champions League? Yeah, if you have the money to set up a Europa League, just expand the Champions League.
And I have to say, yeah, so I'm sort of, I've conceded that like Champions League probably needs a hard reboot or a rebrand or whatever, even though it's dumb. But as you were getting at with the Leagues Cup, Campeones Cup thing, I feel like it's ridiculous to do the Campeones Cup and then do this Leagues Cup thing on top of it, where it's like, how are people supposed to care about like all these different things? Is there even, I'm getting confused now with the CONCACAF Cup, which is whoever wins the 2 Gold Cups, but only if there's 2 different winners of the Gold Cup.
Yeah, it's great.
And then there's
it?
UEFA Nations, CONCACAF Nations League. And how often does that happen?
That's replaced international friendlies now.
That's something where in a vacuum I'm like, okay, might as well, like,
might as well make them count.
Or like, let's keep score. It's not that big of a deal. But is there technically a Nations League winner every year?
I think every 2 years, maybe. Like I think every year there isn't a Gold Cup, maybe.
Okay,
I don't know,
that makes
but
sense.
Like
people love hear us talk about this information that they're probably already Googled.
Yeah, but well, I mean, to your point though, more about the club scene where it's like, it's too many tournaments, man. I don't know how people are supposed to care about all these. Even when you have the domestic league split up into a regular season and then supposedly a playoff cup that matters more. And I mean, it's just like, how is anybody? I mean, it really has. I mean, legitimately diluted both the importance of all these individual games, but also just kind of disoriented people. I mean, it literally is a thing where it's like, I mean, you're looking at the schedule. It's like, there's a game, there's a Leagues Cup game today. When did that happen? And then also it's just like, you don't even know, unless you're the most plugged in fan, which I mean, let's be honest, not a lot of MLS fans are, you don't even know what you're looking at half the time. Like, I don't know.
Although it is interesting to me, and we were talking about this off mic, that the attendance for the New England game was noticeably lower than an MLS regular season game, despite it being included in the season ticket package. Which, in the glass half full take on this, is that people do just care about regular season MLS games, like a regular season MLS schedule, and just like a random,
they
like,
respect the Shield.
Yeah, like a random tournament thing with another domestic opponent, like, just doesn't hit in the same way. To quote or reference the famous 2023 Mets ad campaign. Yeah.
Well, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I lost my train of thought, so pick up for me. Maybe I'll think of it again.
To the format as well, though, I do think, now that I've seen the format, I do think that the oddest decision was having there be domestic face-offs at all, because comparing it back to...
well, yeah, what I was going to say real quick was just that the one thing that might have something to do with the attendance drop-off is that, like, if you're pulling up in your app, in your ticket app, if you're a season ticket holder, the games were just like blank screens until like a week ago. So like you probably weren't even really conscious of that as a thing to look forward to until recently.
Also, it was Barbenheimer weekend, so
that's where I was. Yeah. But also the fact that it was canceled like 3 years in a row, I think does add to it a bit.
I think that, like, it got really lucky almost. I think that the format, well, the Leagues Cup winner gets a CCL berth. Is that correct?
Sure. I don't know.
Right? Because if that's the case, it's like, oh, the new, like, Club World Cup format, I guess, makes it like almost a little different in terms of like CCL qualification.
Oh yeah,
mattering.
how many people do we send to the Club World Cup now? Does CONCACAF get like 5 or whatever?
Yeah.
4?
Well, I mean, I guess now that you bring that up, I'm just gonna like go ahead on my old man soapbox and just say that, like, there's too many like bells and whistles. There's too many Rube Goldberg devices to qualify for different tournaments or end up here or there or get sorted into this. I mean, let's be real. I mean, I guess it's a nostalgia thing, but also, like, it was better 15 years ago when we were kids, when there was just a league and a Champions League. And in Europe, they had a Europa League also. But then in Europe around that time too, when they started, I mean, we joke about Intertoto Cup all the time, but like Intertoto Cup was pretty roundly rejected as like everybody, like, clubs, players, fans, sponsors, everybody was on the same page. Like, this is too much. Like now you're really trying, now things are getting way too cluttered. And I think we've gone well beyond that point in this continent, but that's, I guess that ink has been spilled already.
See.
The toothpaste is out of the tube. Better metaphor.
Also I'm reminded of how, like, it's like literally approaching temperatures where it's like unsafe to be outside for more than 30 minutes in Las Vegas, but let's move another fucking sports team there. Apparently fastest growing city in the country. So might as well play soccer there too.
Well, I mean, maybe if we want to jump on this a minute, I mean, there was some comments from Roman Berkey, who is the St. Louis goalkeeper, who's, been with like Swiss national team and been a pretty big guy in Europe until this year. This is his first year in MLS, and he straight up said after one of these League Cup games last week, like, it's 100 degrees outside. Why are we adding more games to the schedule? I think it's kind of refreshing coming from a guy who hasn't been here for a while or has never played in this country, that he shows up and he's on like a pretty good team and is like pretty bought into it seems. And he's still just like, this is fucked. Like, and I guess it's been a particularly hot summer in New York and across the country. And it's just like, I think that's a legitimate angle to it too, where it's like, you're cluttering the schedule and that sucks in an aesthetic sense, but it's also, becoming a bit of a logistical and maybe even a safety nightmare too.
Well, when Death Valley FC finally comes out from, relegation, we'll...
I bet the Manson family would have had a real good development system. The recruiting is pretty top notch. It is. It just does really seem like a case of dilution. Thinking about our favorite thing to do is pick different thresholds, right, for different points in club and MLS history. One occurs to me now in this conversation, just Seattle finally getting over the hump and beating Pumas in Champions League. Feels like it might have been the final inflection point.
Yeah.
Too on that because. For so long, this isn't even that specific period of time. For a very long time, there were about 2 to 4 MLS teams that would make the knockout rounds of the Champions League. And then you'd have like a very tight set of fixtures with a Mexican league opponent. And it would be very easy and very compelling just to watch how those teams did in those face-offs.
Yeah, they were set up as very like high stakes, and like both teams knew that it was one of the rare times that these teams are ever going to, or teams from these two leagues are ever going to play each other in a competitive game, and it was treated that way.
Yeah.
And the Mexican teams
home and home.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, and this is so different from that. We joked about Superliga, and we were ironically praising it, but it was canned after a very quick experiment because it was just kind of not the same thing as these Champions League games that are pretty respected and treated with dignity.
Yeah, and the one thing Superliga also had that Leagues Cup. Well, there was, I think, an oral history or something that was written about Superliga that mentioned Superliga. And there was like a window of time where the like per diem payout for a Superliga game was higher than it was for Champions League. So I think that the players responded by being like, it was unclear to us which one was actually more prestigious for a second. So like that was a factor. I don't know how that compares with Leagues Cup right now. But also like, at least to my memory, Superliga was always MLS versus Liga MX or
right.
I forget what it was called before the rebrand, which is embarrassing. It wasn't that long ago.
It was Primera Division, right?
Yeah. That sounds right. But it was always like 1v1 with the other league. I think it is really funny that we just played New England like a month ago, and then we're playing them again in this other weird thing. And like, yeah, who cares? Like, also there's
now City,
and it's dilution, like you said.
Yeah.
I mean, it now MLS, random MLS team versus random Liga MX team is just going to be something that happens all the time now, as opposed to when it was like one of the best MLS teams versus one of the best Liga MX teams,
right.
A few times a year.
Yeah. And gradually, like, there was that period as well where it was like, when is the first MLS team going to actually break through and beat a Mexican team? And it slowly happened in the lower rounds, and there was like, when are they going to get over the hump in the final? And even when we were making our run along with Toronto in 2018,
that was part of the tension.
That was part of it. We almost closed out the Continental Championship final with another MLS team. As I said, Seattle kind of broke the barrier on that, and it's no longer that notable for an MLS team to get by any Liga MX team in Champions League, but it's still able to register. Now it's funny because like all the records for and all the numbers for MLS teams beating Liga MX teams, I feel like we're just shot out of the water in like this 2-week period. Like I wouldn't surprise me if it like doubled this last week or something.
Right.
But it's also funny to see Tijuana and Querétaro playing a
Philly.
random game. No, they just played each other in Leagues Cup.
But they played it in Philly.
Played it in Philly, and it all being neutral site. Technically, it's also very funny.
Yeah.
But it is a very real tournament, and we are gonna win it. And
Yeah, we advanced. Fucking New York City #1, baby.
we're gonna lift our first cup, and it's gonna be the League's Cup.
Oh my god. Well, no, we won the Lamanga Cup.
It's true, and the New York Cup, when the Emirates Cup.
Right. Yeah. Honestly, though, like, I mean, I'm only like
half joking.
75% joking that, like,
It's like the same level of prestige.
I mean, we fucking beat, or I don't remember who was that, but like Lyon and Arsenal, I think, were the two other teams in the Emirates Cup that
Yeah,
we played.
that's true.
That's,
Well, and
that's pretty big stuff.
It's also just it's the fact that it's happening. I mentioned the safety aspect of this happening in the middle of the summer, but it's also the fact that it's happening parallel to the stupid European friendlies that have started up again around the U.S. also adds to the feeling that these are just a bunch of like exhibitions.
Right. That's the other thing.
Excuse me, but Chelsea won the Premier League Summer Series, and so
well,
very real
it's
tournament.
interesting that they're now playing each other over here.
Yeah.
Because there was a real progression where
You would go here to play and hope to be hosted by an MLS team.
yeah, and then like 10 to 12 years ago, I think I dare say it was not even that controversial for an MLS team in like 2012.
10 years ago was the Arsenal friendly.
Yeah, and I would say this is sort of that's sort of towards the end of the period I'm thinking of. But like say in 2012, I would say it was not that controversial for an MLS team to sort of like pause and intentionally play one of their better 11s against one of these like touring European teams, and that it was just seen as sort of vitally important commercially and marketing wise to like put a good face out when hosting these teams. And then sort of rapidly, like by like 2016, like by the time RB2 beats Chelsea in 2016 is sort of when that's wrapping up. I mean, that's also like when we played Porto that week, and like the RB2 kids and like Mike Grella I think they beat them too. And then like those friendlies kind of dried up, and then now they're weirdly coming back in a sort of way, but like the Premier League teams are mostly playing each other, and then there was like the ICC, and now like Wrexham was playing like the
like
LA
a reserve
Galaxy
team.
2.
Yeah,
I don't know. That seemed ambitious, like across the board. I could see
it's
somebody
all too
buying Wrexham
much.
tickets for like playing, I don't know, another known team, but like who the fuck did they think was going to buy Wrexham tickets against the reserves?
I just feel like I've been totally vindicated on my long held stance that when soccer eventually did make it in this country, it was not going to be nearly as cool as people think it was going to be.
Yeah,
like I mean, it's made it. Soccer's
Right,
here.
it's
It's not
made it.
going anywhere, and it's exhausting.
Yeah.
it's so much. It's just really too much.
Who would have thought that eventually bringing soccer to merge ultimately with American capitalism would end in such a way?
Soccer has made it. When you go to your friend's housewarming, his friend, his friend from college you don't really like says, "Oh, you're into soccer? Have you seen Ted Lasso?" It's made it. It's here.
Yeah.
You know, you gotta sigh through your teeth all the time.
Which I'm constantly surprised by, because who the fuck has Apple TV? I don't like. Why do you people all have Apple TV? I don't even have Apple TV, and I can watch MLS games. You know?
Yeah. On that note, I had two of these moments. I can't remember the second one. Hopefully it comes to me. But we had another choice moment on the way back from DSA softball where we saw somebody running around in like a pretty obscure Red Bulls like warm-up kit in like Prospect Park South. Just
The
like, hey,
old
like
July 4th warm-up kit. Yeah.
like who the fuck are you? like what? It is just a funny like despite every like, or not despite, but like simultaneously with the fact that like soccer has clearly made it, we also have this funny situation where we like have this multi-million-dollar stadium, and even though the club is run sort of Mickey Mouse and small right now, it's still like a multi-million-dollar operation that runs like in a big league with like all the bells and whistles of a sports league, as much as we complain about it. But it also feels like something that like only like us and like 100 people we know from online know about. And then when you see just like a random person out in the world who's just like wearing Red Bull stuff, it's like, oh, that's weird. How'd you find out about that?
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing I was thinking with, there's that clip that's going viral of that like imitation Eurodance song that started on TikTok, and they shot it in the Oculus, and that's a funny one to me because I'm like, oh right, I forget that like the Oculus is there all the time.
Yeah.
It's not just like this thing that opens up in the earth for me to go to Red Bull's games,
Yeah.
and people experience it outside of that.
Weird. Freaks.
Yeah, why the fuck would you be in the Oculus? Like any other reason?
Yeah, like I can't imagine someone buying an iPhone in the Apple Store at the Oculus, and that's your iPhone that you got from the Oculus.
Somebody's like had an entire day out at the Oculus. Somebody's probably like gone on a date at the Oculus. Think about that.
It's kind of cursed.
Yeah.
We started in Brookfield Place, ended up at the Oculus.
Stay underground the whole time.
Yeah.
So these games.
Yeah, what was it like to be there? 0-0 at a New England
That one
Revolution.
sucked. I don't know. We don't have to go over that one. It was pretty shitty. The penalty shootout at the end of a 0-0 game kind of
Straight to
made up
pens.
for it.
No.
Honestly, I
extra
cannot
time.
remember the last time I saw us win a penalty.
Oh, we
person.
could have looked this up. I
No?
have a strong hunch. I feel like we did win
like
one.
a Philadelphia Open Cup game, maybe. Or
I feel like,
something
one
that.
of the we lost a couple penalty shootouts to Philadelphia in that like 15 to 19 ish stretch, but I think we did win one too.
But I just like how many penalty shootouts will we have gotten into too? You know, that's
Didn't
kind
we?
of
We won a penalty shootout in the 17 Open Cup run. I want to say
maybe sounds possible.
I don't know. What was your assessment of the crowd? You said it was a smaller crowd? Was it like the old timey CCL crowds?
Yeah,
that we used
that's
to get?
exactly how it felt like. It felt like if
The
we had
diehards.
played a CCL game against an MLS team, that might have been what the crowd would have shown up like.
All right, so it was like people seemed into it.
12K, like, you know, diehards are there. No one
Yeah.
else.
Do you think did we deserve to win this game?
Yeah, but also like, I don't know. It also the 0-0 kind of felt deserved. It was like a mid off.
Battle of mid.
Yeah.
Should I even ask you about like the personnel?
No.
Okay.
I mean, did the players seem like into it on both teams? Just to be clear, I think I'm going to make it a bit inadvertently now that I will never
go to one?
I will never attend a Leagues Cup game.
Yeah,
but
I can't join you because I've been to every New York City versus New York Red Bull game that's been open to the public so far, and I can't make this one not count on Thursday. But yeah, I mean, it felt like the intensity of like a regular season MLS game where it's like not too high stakes, but also, you know, like they were playing for sure. I mean, it's funny because like, I mean, I guess I'll get into it in the San Luis game, but there was a moment during that game where I kind of scoffed and was like, we're taking this a little too seriously.
Like the team or like the
Like
fans?
the team, where I felt like it was like, why would like it was when Reyes got subbed on for Hassan and Dam. I was like, why? And then Kyle Duncan also got subbed on for Cameron Harper. And I was like, why are we making a defensive?
well, on our
substitution?
end, I mean,
Like we only needed a draw to get through, right? And I was like, oh,
even more big picture. I mean, I guess this is kind of the only trophy left to play for, unless you think you're gonna, trip your way into MLS Cup. Which,
yeah. Also a good way to get, I guess, Reyes some minutes if possible in the competitive match.
Yeah. I also, last episode, I did say, oh, we should just like chill and use it as an opportunity to like have a summer training camp. But now that it's come, I'm thinking like, well, what else are we going to do? Like, there's literally nothing else to do. Like, might as well play our first team. Like,
Right.
or it's like when I quit my full-time job to go to grad school and then COVID happened like 6 months later. Everyone thought like, oh, maybe I should pause grad school. And then we're all like, what the fuck else are we going to do? That's exactly what Leagues Cup is like. But yeah, San Luis, we had a bit of a Watford versus Leicester moment
yeah.
there. That seemed exciting. I do think maybe I've been the karma has come around for me that I get to miss a big moment like that for not taking this seriously. And part of me was thinking, even though it is sort of ridiculous that we're playing like the epitome of a Liga MX minnow, I did have the thought of like, wait, well, when else am I going to see Atletico San Luis play? Like, maybe I should have gone to that.
At 6:10 p.m., I had that exact thought where I was like, when am I going to see Atletico San Luis? I'm going to go for the novelty. And then I left my apartment at 6:25.
Were there street vendors selling knockoff San Luis kits?
No, they were selling
lot?
Mexico kits and a lot of Miami Messi kits. Nice. I saw someone buy one.
Nice.
Yeah. God, man, good for we like spent like a solid 30 minutes kvetching about like the decline of modern, soccer, and we didn't even mention Messi once. Good for us.
The weirder it gets, Messi's kind of base to me. I'm monitoring the situation.
I refrained a little bit from bringing this up, but like whoever organized the Leagues Cup is extremely happy right now that he's like a part of it, I guess, because he's been, scoring.
Yeah. All right. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just thinking about the Messi thing again now. I don't really have anything to say. It is sort of fucking weird. Well, what was it like seeing the San Luis penalty save to goal in person? Because you sure as hell couldn't see it on TV because they fucked up the editing.
I remember I was very excited. I was like not prepared to like be standing up in utter anticipation. It was, I don't know, like the whole game before that sucked a lot. Where it was, I don't know, like San Luis aren't a very good team. I don't think they've done that much serious scouting because it seemed like they played into the way Red Bull press a lot. But then like we also couldn't do anything offensively. So, you know, like how the New England game was a mid-off, this was kind of more of a suck-off where everyone just like...
Careful.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a very ugly, bad, kind of like messy game. Weird crowd too. Like right behind where I was sitting in 202, people were just rooting for San Luis, but in kind of like a Viva Mexico way in general, like a pan-Mexicanism. But I don't know. It was, that was really exciting at the end. Like that ball that Tolkien played was just so beautiful. Like seeing that in real time. Honestly, the first Van Zer goal was a good finish. The second one, like how could you miss? And then like when Manuel scored the other one, everyone was like, oh, okay, this rules. Because that all happened in the span of like 3 minutes, right?
Oh, yeah. I will say, time to get a good VAR gripe off. I feel like to me that's a good example of something where like you should just be able to call a foul like at the time,
right?
You know.
Also,
like,
this ref for the San Luis game was just like calling the entire game off vibes anyway,
right?
So
especially in that situation where like it doesn't really matter, be like, yeah, all right, fuck it.
Like he was clearly not calling the letter of the game per like the rules or whatever. Like this like the way he was awarding yellow cards didn't seem like by the book or systematic in kind of a way. It was just like, that was a hard enough foul. I was just going to give him a yellow.
Yeah.
What I did notice though, like when we were playing San Luis, I guess this happens in CCL too when we play, you know, cause there other teams in other leagues, but like the way that like, it was just kind of like an ugly game too because of the way that they were just like going for every call to the ref where it's like, oh, you're never going to win that call. Why are you like, everyone is like complaining a lot. It's kind of like playing NYCFC a lot, but like
you thought that was an intentional, like we seemed noticeably more up for it.
No, just like how I don't know, just like how Liga MX's like players like teams sometimes they'll dive or like request a foul from the ref, like, you know, kind of like very incensed, but like it's clearly you're not going to win that. Like,
sure,
it's more dramatic the way that they were calling for fouls, but like our team was kind of normal, I guess, in the way that we usually play it.
That was me on Sunday at DSA League,
right?
Yeah, which our team once again runners up in the DSA League Cup final. We won't play well during the regular season, but we will be in the Cup final and we will lose. It was interesting to see Dante Van Zier scored with his head.
But we won't be shut out.
We won't be shut out, thanks to yours truly.
Yeah.
Actually, now that I had a second to think about it, my goal in the semifinal was actually kind of sick.
Yeah,
I think about it.
That was really cool.
But I'll stop tooting my own horn.
Although, you know, like we wouldn't have gotten that if I didn't put a beautiful ball through that little gap.
Yeah,
you know,
true. The
Vanzier scores with his head.
Scores with his head.
Good finish.
I didn't know that was allowed. I didn't know we could do that.
I didn't either. Honestly, he was a very frustrating player that entire game too.
Was he playing more centrally or out wide?
More centrally.
Okay, that seems to be
his
better move.
I agree, but also like I don't know. He kind of. It's the same kind of problems that I've picked at him before, but this way it was a little bit more noticeable in that he, I don't know, couldn't get it off against players who he should be more quality than, you know, like at a very noticeable level. Like he should be able to beat some of these guys or like run past or make a sprint. Tom
sure
Barlow.
about that?
Well, I mean, I was gonna say I was
I
surprised.
mean,
'cause
maybe he can't. I mean, that's what we've seen
But
so
he's-
far. with
he
Van
should-
Zandt.
he
Like,
should be able to, but, like,
the
yeah.
expectations for me for a player in his position are that you should be able to beat a center back who's of this quality. But Tom Barlow surprisingly was able to make some of these more breaking runs in this game, which I think really showed off his, like the level of ability that we're playing
Well,
against.
I mean,
too.
I continue to be. I mean, my diagnosis of the whole thing. I mean, I mean, I'm not a. I guess I am a Tom Barlow fan to some extent with how relative things have become, but no, I mean, I guess I get why people are incensed about Tom Barlow starting every game, but also that's the system that we've built here. If you're gonna play a system with no number 10 that doesn't really have central combination as an emphasis of play, then yeah, you need to have a striker who can run and make long kind of ventures to go get the ball and give an option to players to play vertically. I mean, Van Zer out there is just, kind of a pretty static player compared to what Barlow does off the ball. I mean, on the ball, Barlow's deficient, but we've made clear that we don't really care that much about how players are combining on the ball. It's all about the chances and the odds that come from pushing long balls and pushing, just extreme speed and transition.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're going to be playing that way, and we don't really have any other choice with the way the team's been set up for 3 years now and beyond, to not play that way, then you're going to have to play a guy like Barlow, unless you trust Manuel, which I think is still a struggle for this management team.
Yeah, and I think that game really brought out, like you're saying, this lack of 10, how limited Luquinhas' playmaking abilities are in this game. He just cannot play the right weight on the ball. Everything's a little too strong or, a little too weak, and it'll get picked off by an opposing center back. I'm not sure anybody really has a ball on our team. Like, we don't really have a baller like that,
Nobody has gravity.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The other thing too, just as a quick sidebar, is that just like I'm still not ready to see like celebration like posts and stuff like that that are centering around Dante Van Zer. That's still very cursed to me, and I just adds to my distaste for the whole milieu right now.
Although
That's a good point.
To be fair, there was, I guess, a more philanthropic push behind the celebration for this.
Oh, yeah. I
Well,
guess I
there was
missed the
that, but
memo
I mean,
on
even
that,
beyond,
but
there's
yeah.
been stuff
There's like just
where
the way that
aren't displaying the shirt, and outside of this game, it's
like no one's making you do that.
Well, I mean, even beyond just like the decision, it's
not. He's not the face I would be emphasizing.
No,
Right.
and even
If you were actually embarrassed by the
he's
whole
not even
thing,
having
you
a good
wouldn't be doing
season.
that.
I mean, he's
Yeah.
scored a couple goals, but it's just like
That's his position. He's supposed to score goals.
That, and then also it's supposed to be pretty. He gave himself an extremely high threshold for that kind of fanfare that I don't think a couple goals in a Leagues Cup games are meeting. But rant over.
Yeah. It is. I guess I don't know what else Troy is supposed to do in a short window of time. But it is interesting that we're continuing to play the 4-2-2-2. I guess there's not much point in trying to force somebody into 10 position if we just hadn't recruited for that type of player. But it does remain sort of still a baffling recruiting decision to get Van Zer now that we see what kind of player he actually is. Maybe he can hit a finish from more static position, but I don't know why Gerhard Struber or Dennis Hamlet or Jochen Schneider, to the extent they all even really thought about it, thought this was the guy that would fit the kind of system if that's his sort of profile. But presumably in the offseason, or as we retool the squad, you'd get a player in the midfield with a little bit more gravity, more typical to sort of what we had from the 2014, I guess, to 2018-19 period, and only more recently have departed with ever since Kaku left. But we'll worry about that in the offseason. In the meantime, we've got a game against City on Thursday, which is bizarre. And we also have a transfer that was announced today where the Rebels have brought in. If you had to guess what position the Rebels would reinforced this.
What position they're just absolutely desperate for bodies at?
Yeah. Would you have guessed right back? Then you would be right, because we've brought in Juan Mina from Deportivo Cali. Is that Profe's team, or is it the other Cali team?
Profe seemed mad about all this, so I don't think it's his
Is he an
team.
America guy? Okay.
Yeah. He's whichever team has the devil logo, which I can never remember. But
So you're saying
this is the more important point is that it's Yerry Mina's younger brother, I guess. Yerry Mina from Everton.
I will.
So this is like the Acuna situation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's remember what podcast we're on. It's the John Rooney situation.
Yeah,
it's the DeGao situation.
I was gonna say, I will throw my 2 cents behind begrudgingly respecting the brother bit.
Right.
You know, like it's like the last guy on the roster. Sure, let's get some brothers in here.
Yeah.
Why not? But yeah, that is good. It is sort of funny because, you know,
Are you sure he's not a left back?
I don't know. Was there a suggestion that he could play center? I think I might have dreamt that, actually, that he could play center back, because that's the only way my brain could make sense of it before.
He seems to
I
be
woke
described
up.
as a right back pretty much everywhere that I've seen. I doubt we're going to get any long form analysis of who he is from anybody now that certain publications don't exist. But
He's 19 years old, so I guess theoretically could still get flexed around, but we'll see. And other than that, looks like there's not. I mean, what was the lead time on this rumor? It was about like half a week.
yeah, like I was gonna say, like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, which I think
I think Bogart like put a blurb out about it like middle of last week.
So that's, I guess, sort of telling on what the lead time for a transfer in Red Bull's world is nowadays. When does the transfer window end?
Wednesday.
Okay, all right.
It
So
follows the trade deadline.
you know, given that we've heard nothing else, I would be surprised if something else comes through. But you know, because as we've been sort of suggesting here through the last couple months, it's not exactly a situation where it looks like we got to make a run this year. You know, it looks like maybe we can play with house money, make it into the MLS Cup playoffs, but you know, it's not like we're one piece away necessarily from competing. I think you have to do a pretty major reshuffling of, for me at least, like the way we attack. My I guess sort of hot take is that I think we have a decent stable of like defensive and central spine on this team. I think we do kind of need maybe a more proper replacement for Long, but I think our central midfield situation is still weirdly good even after CCJ is left. And if Lewis Morgan gets fit again, I still think that's like a potential MLS best 11 quality wide player. But I do think that's the kind of rework that will need a more substantial rebuild over the offseason. Now, is there any reason to think that there's sporting brass devoting any brain energy to this? What an interesting question. Let's segue to our next piece of news, which is that an old name that you may have heard, Gerhard Struber, has a new job over in Salzburg. That got confirmed today. Isn't that interesting?
Explain to the folks at home who Gerhard Struber is.
Now, do either of you know off the top of your head what exactly the chain of events here is with their manager leaving? I guess they also had a weird like vacancy situation where their last guy was like,
he's going to Al Hilal.
Well, yeah, I mean they had Jaisel, or is it Jaisel?
Yeah,
You're the German speaker.
Jaisel?
Nice. That would have been my last guess, and
Yeah.
that was what I would have guessed has been like the most like hick American pronunciation.
it's
of
not
it,
like
but,
Jaeger.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, like, isn't Hick American the most German, really?
Well,
I
true.
don't know, yeah.
But anyway, he's been the manager for 3 years now, ever since Jesse left, and has, you know, kind of been doing Salzburg stuff. I mean, it's hard to do anything except win the league every year, but we'll find out soon. But yeah, he dipped out to go join the big love-in over in Saudi Arabia, the Haight Asbury Renaissance going on over there. And now they've decided to go to an old hand. It seemed, I mean, you could have read between the lines going back to, freaking summer of 2020 when Struber first came on the radar for New York that this could have happened. But over the years, just, and especially over the last few months, a lot of trickling that seemed to point towards this. I mean, the fact that, Jasel was kind of becoming long in the tooth for a Salzburg manager going through his third season. And then also Struber's New York tenure, obviously going a bit south, sort of started to lay the tracks. And then when Struber was eventually, when Struber and the New York club came to a mutual agreement to part ways, however that took place a couple months ago, Struber Struber's literally from Salzburg. It's his hometown, and went back there immediately. And all of a sudden, the rumors about jobs in England and Germany and Holland dried up. And it seemed like he was just kind of waiting in place for this to all happen. And yeah, it's been kind of interesting how pointed the response is. I mean, I was always expecting New York fans to show up in some of the discourse, venting their disapproval, which, that makes sense. But then also there's some pretty pointed kind of reporting from the Austrian side by Anna. Sorry, I'm just making sure that I don't destroy her name. But Anna Konovalova, who I actually remember citing as a source a little bit back in the day when I was with Once a Metro on some Salzburg stuff. She had a very interesting thread about how not only is, just on the face of it, a disappointing hire for Salzburg, just because Struber is not, in his words, the sexiest candidate I guess they could have gone for. But it's also a matter of she ended up diagnosing it, I thought, pretty succinctly as a prince in waiting problem at Salzburg and Red Bull clubs in general. That it's become such kind of like an insular thing ever since the Ragnick regime, that there's not really any searching going on. It's just kind of guys waiting in line, whether it was Jesse, whether it was Jasel, whether it was Marco Rosa, and now Struber, these guys who just become kind of the latest golden boy. And it's just a what might have seemed like a very kind of industrial, kind of prepared line of succession thing is actually contributing to a pretty major staleness in the Red Bull project. Yeah. And I thought that's all a very sound diagnosis. And I think it parallels with what we're starting to see happen in New York now in Struber's wake, as I posted a little bit about earlier today.
Yeah, we were saying, like, instead of searching, I was thinking, like, and this is a loaded word now, but like not in that way. Like they're grooming kind of like their next coach instead of like, going after it.
After someone who's proven.
Right. Yeah. But even like, Jesse, like we know what his personality type is too. Like it seems like we can kind of gauge what kind of personality really succeeds to get to this like coaching position at this Red Bull.
Yeah. Although it does feel like an interesting contrast with Jesse, like with Struber, because with Jesse, you still felt like a maniacal desire to like climb and prove it oneself, and with Struber, it feels like the emperor's clothes have all come off, where it's like you don't even need to not fuck up. Like as you're kind of suggesting, like there's one thing to think like, oh, we've planned this out, we've got great succession plans, we've really got everything lined up, but like it's still important for people to still do a good job and not like embarrass the organization. And Struber did embarrass the organization, and like that also makes it more, I think it really sheds light on why exactly it took so long for him to actually get shown the door here, because I think they were probably really trying to see if they could just make it to now without firing Struber, which is also insane because that doesn't even seem that much easier, really. Like, would it have actually been easier for him to remain coach at New York till now, even if the results were okay?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what if they were having a good season, but we've already crossed that precipice 5 years ago,
right?
That they're willing to just plunk a manager away, even in the middle of literally the best season in league history,
right?
Yeah, just a lot of very
too.
bad context clues out of all of this.
And it is interesting that, like, it's kind of what you were tweeting about Troy earlier. Like, to me, this really also confirms that when they brought Troy over, who knows if they said it explicitly to him or if they just implied it to him, but it really confirms to me that, like, we're bringing
he was
you
there
in
for
here
when Struber leaves.
Yeah, like, because, like, also, obviously Troy or Struber didn't know this career USL guy from South Carolina. Obviously, he's not one of his boys. Like, it can't. No evidence of them even working that closely together, like on the pitch or in any of the limited club media we get to see. They're just like two random guys. So who knows how much more they've thought about, like, the Lissain regime for that. But I don't know. It's I wonder if maybe having one thing less to think about with Salzburg increases the capacity for maybe thinking about New York, but who knows? I mean, it's really a big what goes on here, who cares energy going on right now. And not even just with the Red Bulls. I mean, this also just gets me thinking about City as well, where it's like, what the fuck's going on over there? Like, we're playing them on Thursday, but the stakes really feel...
They also seem to be a club where their global ownership group just kind of treats them as a holding pen.
Yeah.
They're selling off players as soon as there's an offer. They're even forcing loans instead of, just waiting for transfers on their literal best player in the middle of a good season last year. They're just leaving, this guy Cushing in charge instead of actually going out and hiring a serious manager.
I saw a weird video.
There's a lot of very real atrophy now in the New York teams that a lot of people were just, pretending happened for years and years while these clubs were actually successful. Now it's very real, and it's, kind of nobody wants to talk about it. Hi, Luna.
I think it's interesting thinking about it in this terms too.
Luna.
That it feels like the cat that was maybe let out of the bag here, that both New York teams, and I think it's not only the New York teams, but these are the most proximate and immediate examples to us, especially given our fixture this week. The cat that was let out of the bag here is the idea that, like, there was a sort of winning that long-term winning beyond the actual winning on the field, that it was maybe the infinite game, which, long-time listeners know we were big proponents of and criticizing Armis, but yeah, maybe, like, it is overshadowed a little bit. We're, like, thinking about, like, being part of the structure and kicking up and, like, having everything click into place is really what it's all about. And, like, short-term losses are, like, understandable with that. And maybe it just feels like that mindset and has gone a little too far. Because now it's also like, what is even the point of all of that for both the Red Bull and, like, City infrastructure? It's like, what were we doing here again? Like, especially City is, like, buying a new club every year too. What is even the point? But that said, are you excited for Thursday? Are you gonna be? I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be there.
I can't miss an NYCFC game.
Yeah.
I have a streak to keep up.
Well, I mean, and also were you automatically enrolled to purchasing it?
I didn't even realize I was automatically enrolled. So I bought that ticket, I guess.
Well, congrats. If we win this game, I guess we just keep playing every 4 days or so. Is that what goes on here? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, they blocked out the next month of scheduling.
Yeah, I was like thinking if we lost against San Luis, we wouldn't see the Red Bulls until like September, basically.
By the way, thank you, Nathan Howard, for your question. We essentially answered it piece by piece in the last segment. But
do we want to read it out just for good measure?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead
and get it.
But yeah, just is the Lissainy moon, the Troy Lissainy moon or honeymoon is the bit he's going for. I appreciate it. Is the Lissainy moon over? Sub patterns 4222. I'm still happier with the manager than I was before, but my glasses lose tint every day.
Yeah, I do think we answered most of that. It's a good prompt though as well for me to just mention that the vibes are still much better. Infinitely low bar with Struber. I don't love the vibes at the club right now,
Right.
But it's mostly not the manager I have a beef with.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not like embarrassed and ashamed of the club like I was under Struber, and that is not nothing.
Right.
That is a lot.
But it will eventually become a time, maybe after this season, but maybe later on in this season, when just being not Struber is not going to be enough.
Yeah.
But
So
also,
we'll have to see where that leads.
yeah, like it's like this. You were probably saying this before, Cork, but just the roster construction doesn't really lend itself to anything really.
Well, yeah, I mean, this season's already been pretty much poisoned and is a mess, and it's going to take at least one more transfer window to get the team back straight again. But in the meantime, doesn't seem, I mean, the fact that we're not bothering to, give the possibility of a new manager on the horizon isn't a very good sign for the fact, or for the premise of them, kind of retooling the squad again. So
Yeah, it's also a funny in between of being like, he's not interim, he's the manager for this year, but then also not commenting on next year yet.
And-
Where it's
and-
like, presumably he'll still be back next
and
year.
still pretty much working on a short staff. Brought in Zach Prince, but otherwise, we saw three coaches walk in Struber, Eibler, and now Niemanen a little bit later, and they've been replaced by Lassane being promoted, so not really a replacement.
Yeah.
And then Prince is the only new assistant added, and then they promoted an academy guy to goalkeeper. So it's not really a full deck that they're playing with this year.
And Patel also left, last offseason?
Right,
Or-
yeah.
I did notice during the San Luis game they had like 4 dudes suited up just coaching in the box.
Who knows? Maybe just they got some regens sent by the
They looked
simulation.
NPC-ish
Yeah.
the way they were dressed, but also saw Zach Prince doing some squatting, some old school. Troy was doing some squatting too. He's a squatter on the sidelines.
Not like
Like he just squats down.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good look. I respect that. That's another vibe I respect. Also not hiding his height, unlike some other managers we've known in
Oh God.
recent history. Well, I think that covered it fairly well. I think it was some new forms of kvetching, not just the same old kvetching we've done. I don't know when we would play after we beat City.
Or who we would play.
Yeah, but I'm going to be out of town, so you guys have to figure that out when I'm gone. So Sam can fill in my shoes here. Were you going to say something? Is that good?
Yeah.
That good for this episode?
Is that good enough for you people?
for League's Cup? Only our best for the League's Cup.
Lights out.